He thought he had buried the last piece of his old life, until a snowstorm left a military crate on his porch, and inside it, the war dog he had already mourned. Shadow wasn't supposed to be alive, and the moment Logan's blood saved him, a forgotten classified alert was triggered, calling enemies out of the dark and pulling a former Navy warrior back into a fight he never asked for. If you want to know how Logan and his resurrected canine battled forces determined to erase them both, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and stay with us for the full story. Snow pressed down on the Montana forest in a heavy, suffocating silence as dawn struggled to break through the overcast sky. Logan stood at the edge of his cabin's porch, watching the pale horizon blur into the tree line. The cold bit into his skin the way memories sometimes did, sharp, persistent, impossible to ignore. At 32, with a body built from years of military discipline, Logan looked like a man carved out of strength and restraint. Broad shoulders, defined muscle lines, steady hands, and a face that was surprisingly calm for someone who had seen so much. No scars marred his features. The conflicts he carried were all hidden under the surface, locked away behind steady dark eyes that didn't give away much. His hair, short, dark, and trimmed with the precision of someone who never quite let go of military habit, glimmered faintly with frost. Living alone here had become a choice, not a punishment. After leaving the Navy, Logan had retreated into this cabin because the world outside had become too loud, too complicated, too full of ghosts. Losing Shadow, his canine partner, his companion through fire and smoke and sand, was the final blow. They had served together in multiple classified deployments, saved lives together, shed blood together. When Shadow was declared KIA after an off-the-books operation went sideways, something inside Logan had fractured. The cabin didn't fix him. It simply kept him from breaking further. It had been 2 years since then. 2 years of quiet mornings, predictable routines, and an isolation that wrapped around him like a blanket he didn't want, but couldn't let go. He brewed coffee. He repaired tools. He hunted in the fall, chopped wood in the winter, read old field manuals when the nights felt too empty. And he never expected anything to change. But change has a way of arriving, even when no one calls for it. Especially for men like Logan. The first sign was the sound, barely there, like a whisper under the wind. Tires on snow, slow, deliberate, controlled. Logan froze. No one ever drove this far in without announcing themselves, without calling, without being invited. He placed the mug down and stepped off the porch, boots crunching in the deepening snow. The forest swallowed most sounds, but not this one. The vehicle was close. Then it stopped. No engine rev. No idle hum, just a click, a door closing quietly. Logan's body reacted before his mind caught up, muscles tightening, breath slowing, heartbeat leveling into the steady rhythm of a trained operator, preparing for a threat he couldn't yet see. He scanned the tree line. Nothing moved. Not even a bird stirred from the branches. A moment later, the sound came again, a softer thud this time, something placed on wood. And then, silence. Whoever delivered it had already disappeared. Logan approached the porch slowly, every instinct whispering caution. Sitting there, dusted with fresh snow, was a military-grade transport crate, reinforced polymer, dual metal hinges, lock ports built for airlift harnessing. He hadn't seen a crate like this in years, not since... No, it couldn't be. His breath condensed in harsh clouds as he crouched, examining the crate. No sender information, no unit patch, no agency tag. Just a laminated card zip-tied to the front. He turned it over. One line of text, typed in stark black font. You're the only one who can keep him alive. Him, not it, not asset, him. A chill far colder than winter slid across Logan's skin. His hands hovered over the latches. He hesitated. This felt like a trap, a message, a plea, or a death sentence wrapped inside a box. He unlocked the first latch. The metal clicked, loud against the winter air. He unlocked the second. The crate opened with a low groan, and time stopped. Inside, lying curled and trembling, fur matted with blood and ice, was Shadow. Logan's heart slammed upward, a punch beneath his ribs. For a moment he couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't accept what he was seeing. Shadow, alive, but barely. The dog's once powerful frame now looked carved down by injury, ribs showing, abdomen swollen with internal damage. Fresh sutures poorly done, dried blood crusted into the black fur he knew better than his own reflection. Shadow wasn't moving at first. But then a soft, broken sound escaped him. Not a bark, not a whine, just a quiet recognition, a memory reaching up through pain. Logan knelt closer, hand shaking as he pressed it lightly against Shadow's neck. The fur was cold, too cold. Shadow's eyes fluttered open, dark, intelligent, the same eyes he thought he would never see again. Slowly, agonizingly, Shadow stretched his muzzle toward Logan's hand and touched it with the faintest breath. Logan felt the world tilt. Memories hit him like a blow, desert dust swirling around them, night vision green against gunfire, Shadow leaping through smoke to pull a wounded soldier back behind cover. The last mission where Shadow disappeared in an explosion that swallowed half the team. They had told Logan he died. They gave him a medal for handling the loss with exemplary composure. The flash of anger that surged through him now was quiet but fierce. Someone had lied. Someone had taken Shadow and done this. "I've got you," Logan whispered, voice breaking without permission. "I've got you, boy." Shadow blinked once, slow and pained. Logan gently lifted the dog from the crate, careful not to jostle the abdomen. Shadow was heavy despite the weight he'd lost, but Logan's arms remained steady. The dog's breathing hitched, painful, shallow, wrong. Logan didn't have much time. He carried Shadow inside and laid him on the insulated floor mat near the heating stove, pulling blankets over him. The dog trembled under the warmth, but his breathing eased slightly. Logan examined him quickly, hands moving with the practiced precision of a Navy medical specialist. Lacerations, deep bruising, field sutures done too fast, too rough, signs of internal hemorrhaging, dehydration, blood loss. Someone tried to save him. Someone else tried to kill him. Logan's jaw tightened. The crate, the message, the lack of tracks. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. And whoever sent Shadow here knew Logan wouldn't refuse the call. "Stay with me," he murmured. Shadow's ears twitched weakly. Logan checked his pulse, counted the beats. Faint, thready. The dog wasn't going to last without intervention. Real intervention. Logan moved fast. The cold in his gut hardened into purpose. He rushed to the back of the cabin, unlocked the floor hatch, and descended the narrow steps leading into the reinforced bunker beneath. Years ago, he had built this space as a backup aid station, a habit he couldn't break from his service days. Emergency lighting flickered on as he hit the switch. Steel counters, locked medical drawers, old but functional diagnostic gear, supplies he hoped he'd never need again. He grabbed everything relevant: IV lines, antiseptics, compression pads, emergency saline. As he turned to run back up the stairs, something heavier settled into his chest. This wasn't just a rescue. This was a message from a past he'd never truly escaped. Someone sent Shadow to him. Someone knew Logan would risk everything to save him, and someone else would undoubtedly come looking for him. Logan reached the top of the hatch just as a soft thump echoed outside the cabin. He froze. Not movement, not wind, something falling. Or someone. His hand slid instinctively toward the sidearm holstered near the doorframe. His pulse slowed, his breathing steadied, and the soldier inside him, the one he'd tried so hard to bury, rose to the surface. "Shadow," he whispered, eyes narrowing. "You didn't come back alone, did you?" Shadow's ears lifted slightly, as if confirming it. Logan moved toward the window, gaze locked on the snow-covered path. Nothing. But his instincts screamed the truth. The moment Shadow returned, Logan's quiet life ended. This wasn't coincidence, this was the beginning. And whatever storm had brought Shadow back, it wasn't finished with them yet. Warmth from the cabin stove seeped into the room, but Logan felt none of it. His pulse hammered in his ears as he knelt beside Shadow, the dog's breath faltering, shallow and uneven. The edges of Shadow's ribs rose and fell with a trembling that made Logan grit his teeth. He had seen warriors bleed out in deserts, in jungles, inside destroyed compounds, but seeing Shadow like this carved a hole straight through his chest, deeper than any battlefield wound. He laid one palm against Shadow's chest, feeling the faint vibration of a heartbeat that was losing its rhythm. The dog's fur, once thick and gleaming, was cold and stiff with dried blood. Logan swallowed hard, forcing his emotions back where they belonged. His voice came out low, steady, the tone he used in combat when the world threatened to spiral apart. "Stay with me. You hear me? Don't check out. Not now." Shadow's ears twitched weakly at the sound of Logan's voice, that old bond sparking even through the haze of pain. Logan stood up quickly, his movements shifting from emotional reflex to clinical precision. He grabbed a lantern, turned the brightness to its maximum, and shone it across Shadow's body. The abdomen was far too firm. The bruising pattern indicated internal bleeding. The sutures, dull thread, rough stitches, were field repairs made by someone with basic skill under severe time pressure. Whoever did it had tried to save Shadow, not harm him. But the injuries were too severe and the resources too limited. Only a combat medic or a corpsman with advanced trauma training could stabilize this, and Logan had been both. Years ago, during deployment, he had made a vow. One burned into him after watching a teammate die due to lack of transfusion resources. If you can give blood, you give blood. If you can keep someone alive, you do it, no matter what it costs. That oath rose now, steady and absolute. Logan hurried into the bunker again, grabbing everything he needed. A portable scanner, medical shears, tourniquets, blood-type kits, and 2 old but reliable IV setups. When he returned upstairs, Shadow tried to lift his head but failed, collapsing back with a soft grunt of pain. Logan knelt and stroked the dog's neck. "Easy, boy. I'm here." He shaved a patch along Shadow's abdomen, wiped away dried blood, and pressed the ultrasound probe to the skin. The image flickered on the small monitor, dark pooling where no fluid should be. Logan clenched his jaw. Time was slipping faster than Shadow could hold on to it. He opened the blood supplies he stored for emergencies. One bag after another. Expired, expired, expired. All unusable. "Damn it," he whispered, hands running through his hair. He didn't have time to drive to town. Shadow wouldn't survive the trip. The dog's breathing hitched again, a sound too close to surrender. Logan sat back on his heels. His mind raced through every medical scenario he'd ever learned, every battlefield improvisation, every desperate measure used when resources had been stripped away. Only one viable option remained, and it was the one he didn't want to consider. Direct transfusion. Dangerous. Risky. Should only be done under extreme conditions. And this was as extreme as it got. Logan exhaled slowly, controlling the tremor in his fingers. "Fine," he murmured. "We do it the old way." He sterilized his arm, tied a tourniquet around his bicep, and inserted the needle with practiced calm. Blood flowed into the bag, warm and dark. A faint dizziness tugged at the edges of his awareness, but he ignored it. He had trained his mind to resist weakness on the battlefield, and this was no different. When the bag was full enough for the first round, he prepped Shadow's IV port. The dog didn't flinch when the needle slid in. That scared Logan more than anything. "Come on, Shadow," Logan whispered, adjusting the flow. "Don't make me do all the work." The transfusion began. Logan placed one hand on Shadow's side, counting breaths, monitoring the change in the gum color, watching for signs of rejection or shock. Minutes dragged by. Snow continued to fall outside, muffling the world. Inside, the only sounds were Shadow's labored breaths and the rhythmic drip of blood entering his vein. Logan's head swayed once, the blood loss hitting him harder now. He steadied himself, inhaled deeply, and kept watch. Slowly, slowly. Shadow's heartbeat began to strengthen beneath Logan's palm. The gums flushed a faint pink. The trembling eased. The dog's eyes cracked open, still clouded with pain but focused now, focused on Logan, as if remembering everything they'd survived together. "That's it," Logan murmured, relief tightening his throat. "Fight. You know how to fight." Shadow blinked once, slow and certain. The transfusion finished, and Logan disconnected the line with gentle hands. He leaned back, dizzy but grateful. "Good boy," he whispered. And then, Shadow jerked suddenly, not from pain but from something internal. His body stiffened for a moment, ears lifting sharply. Logan frowned. "Shadow?" A faint sound came from Shadow's collar, an electronic click, barely audible. Then, a tiny red light blinked beneath the fur at the base of the neck. Logan's stomach dropped. A locator, military grade, dormant until now, activated by new blood, by change in vitals, or by a biochemical signature unique to Shadow's genome. And if it activated, someone else knew, someone else was watching, someone else had just been alerted that Shadow was alive. Logan pressed his fingers to the tag, flipping the fur aside. The device pulsed with a second, brighter blink. Not a tracking tile, a classified asset beacon. "No," Logan whispered. "Not now." He reached for his multi-tool, ripping the beacon free before it could broadcast location triangulation. He crushed it in his fist, metal splitting between his fingers, but he knew it wasn't fast enough. These beacons didn't need time. They needed only a heartbeat. Shadow's return hadn't gone unnoticed. Logan heard the wind shift outside. Not wind, movement. Slow, deliberate, just like earlier. Logan rose to his feet, sudden adrenaline clearing all fatigue. He moved to the gun safe by the door, unlocked it with a code he never forgot, and grabbed a non-lethal beanbag shotgun in his sidearm. He didn't want a kill count tonight. He wanted answers, and he wanted Shadow safe. He glanced back at the dog. Shadow's gaze followed him, weak but alert, recognizing the stance, the tone, the shift in Logan's posture from caretaker to combatant. Shadow had seen that transition many times. It meant danger. "Stay down," Logan said softly. "I'll handle this." But Shadow's body tensed, preparing to rise. Even dying, he refused to leave Logan unprotected. Logan shook his head. Not this time. He moved to the window and peeked through the edge of the curtain. Snow, trees, silence. Too silent. Instinct buzzed across his skin like electricity. Something was there, watching, closing in. He backed away from the window. His voice dropped to a whisper. "They're coming, buddy." He didn't know who they were, only that the beacon had awakened someone. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't rescue. This was pursuit. Logan checked the shotgun's chamber. Loaded. Ready. He steadied his breathing, heart slow, muscles calm, mind razor sharp. The soldier was awake again, and whatever storm was coming for them, it had made one critical mistake. It came after Shadow. It came after family. Logan positioned himself between Shadow and the door, posture centered, eyes locked forward. "If they want you," he murmured, "they're gonna have to go through me." Outside, the snow shifted again. Footsteps. Several. The first wave was coming. The night thickened around the cabin like a tightening fist, the snow absorbing sound so completely that even the forest seemed to hold its breath. Logan stood in the center of the room, shotgun held low but ready, every sense sharpened to a blade's edge. He knew the cadence of stealth. He knew the rhythm of trained footsteps, and the pattern outside didn't belong to hikers or lost travelers. It belonged to men who moved with purpose and training. Shadow tried to rise again, pushing his weight onto trembling legs, but Logan extended an arm to hold him down. "Easy, you're not ready for this yet," he whispered. Shadow's eyes disagreed, dark, alert, burning with instinct, but his body betrayed him, sagging beneath its own weakness. Logan couldn't risk the dog reopening internal injuries. Not now. Not when enemies were tightening the perimeter. The footsteps stopped. Too quiet. Too controlled. Logan inhaled deeply, grounding himself the way he had before breaching unknown buildings in foreign countries. Steady pulse, stable vision, mind like water. He walked without sound to the nearest window, barely shifting the curtain with a fingertip. The snow reflected faint moonlight, revealing 3 dark figures spaced wide in a tactical triangle. 3 men. Not 4, not 2, exactly 3, just enough to dominate a target without attracting attention. They wore no insignias, no patches, no reflective gear that civilian contractors usually carried. Instead, their clothing was matte, insulated for silence and flexibility. Faces obscured by balaclavas, rifles strapped but held low, not raised, not reckless, but ready. A different kind of danger. Not military, not police, private, and experienced. Logan's jaw set. These weren't rescuers. They were retrieval agents, and Logan had handled enough conflict zone private security teams to recognize the signs. Trained, well-funded men who worked outside the boundaries of government oversight. Men who erased their own footprints, and anyone else's if the money demanded it. One of them stepped forward, the leader. Even from a distance, Logan saw the man's confident, heavy stride, the way his shoulders squared and head tilted just slightly, as if assessing wind direction. A seasoned predator. Broad chest, thick arms, a thick neck that suggested years of hard conditioning. Logan pegged him at mid-40s, professional, maybe ex-military gone freelance. He carried himself like a man used to giving orders and having them obeyed. The leader finally spoke, his voice carrying just enough to reach the cabin. "Logan Rhodes," he called calmly. "We're here for the asset." Shadow lifted his head at the word asset, a low rumble building in his chest. Logan didn't respond. Let them talk. Let them reveal their hand. We don't want trouble, the leader continued, tone steady. Hand over the animal. This doesn't have to escalate. Logan lowered the curtain and murmured under his breath. It already escalated the moment you stepped on my land. He positioned himself behind the sturdy oak table, thick enough to stop non-rifle rounds, and waited. The men outside hadn't knocked. They hadn't announced themselves properly. This wasn't negotiation. This was intimidation. One of the other men, thinner and slightly hunched forward like he was itching for action, shouted, "You're outnumbered, Rhodes." Logan let a dry, humorless smile cross his lips. "People like you always think numbers matter," he muttered. He counted their spacing, the angles, the likely breach points. They were preparing for a forced entry. 2 on the flanks, 1 at the front to draw attention. Standard triangle sweep. Shadow growled again, pushing himself halfway up. Logan crouched beside him and placed a hand around the dog's collar. "Not yet," he murmured. "You're too weak." But Shadow's gaze was unyielding. The same fierce devotion Logan had seen on missions where the dog would block bullets with his body if he had to. Logan's chest tightened. "Don't make this harder for me," he whispered. Another crunch of snow. Footsteps approaching the porch. Logan shifted behind the table, aimed the shotgun at the doorframe, and waited for the sharp inhale, the moment before a breach. It came exactly on cue. A boot slammed into the door. Logan fired. The beanbag round hit the door just as it flew open, slamming into the intruder's torso with a brutal thump. The man grunted, stumbling sideways into the doorframe. For a fraction of a second, Logan saw his face. Thick brows, high cheekbones, rough stubble, olive skin weathered by harsh environments. A hardened contractor. Logan moved before the man recovered, racking another round as he rolled to the side, using the table for cover. Another figure stormed through the doorway. The thin, twitchy one Logan had mentally labeled Slick. He swung a stun baton, crackling with electric arcs. Shadow lunged. Logan barely had time to curse. Shadow's weakened body shouldn't have moved like that, but instinct trumped injury. The big black dog snapped onto the man's arm with precision, jaws clamping down on the outer forearm where major arteries were safer. It wasn't a chaotic bite. It was a trained hold, controlled and intentional. The man shrieked and dropped the baton. "Shadow, disengage!" Logan snapped. Shadow released instantly, pivoting to stand between Logan and the contractors. His posture trembled from effort, but his stance remained perfect, a Tier 1 canine refusing to fail. The leader appeared next, looming in the doorway. His eyes flicked from Logan's shotgun to Shadow's blood-matted body, and something like irritation, maybe pity, maybe annoyance, passed through his gaze. "Rhodes," he said, voice lower now, "don't do this. That dog is property, classified property. You know what that means." Logan stepped forward, shotgun leveled. "He's not property, and he's not going anywhere." The leader exhaled through his nose, a calm, resigned sound. "So be it." He charged. Logan fired again, the beanbag round slamming into the man's chest, stopping him mid-rush. Logan didn't wait for him to fall. He holstered the shotgun and lunged forward, catching the man in a shoulder lock and twisting him to the floor. Years of close-quarters combat allowed him to move with fluid efficiency. The leader hit the wood hard, snow spilling from his jacket. Behind them, Slick scrambled backward, clutching his injured arm. The third man, the one Logan mentally called Ghost Legs because of his light, rapid steps, hesitated on the threshold. He stared at Logan, at Shadow, at the disarmed leader, and panic flickered across his features. Then he ran. Of course he did. Logan shoved the leader aside and stood, chest heaving from exertion. The cold air in the cabin turned to fog with every breath. Shadow limped to Logan's side, leaning slightly against his leg. Logan stroked the dog's head once. "Good job," he whispered. Shadow huffed in response, as if trying to hide the pain. He moved quickly now, dragging the unconscious leader inside, zip-tying the hands of the other man, and shutting the door before more snow swirled in. He needed answers, not corpses. After securing them, Logan returned to the crate that had brought Shadow to him. He turned it over, examining every groove, every hidden notch. If someone had tracked Shadow, they needed a transmitter, a tracker, something subtle, and he found it. A tiny, pill-sized device wedged beneath a reinforcement bar. Matte black, waterproof, almost undetectable. It blinked faintly when he pressed its side. A ping beacon. A long-range precision tracker. Someone had known exactly where Shadow was at all times. Logan crushed it under his heel, grinding the components into the wood until they snapped. But the realization hit him like a blow. Destroying the tracker didn't matter. The signal had already been sent. The people who wanted Shadow erased wouldn't stop at 3 mercenaries. They would send more, stronger, smarter, and they would not fail twice. The room suddenly felt smaller, the walls closing in like the cabin had become a cage. Logan steadied himself, breathing slowly. Then he looked down at Shadow. The dog looked back at him with full loyalty. Loyalty that said, "I trust you. I follow you. Wherever we go next." Logan knelt beside him, placed a hand over the dog's heart, and whispered, "I'm not losing you again. We'll face whatever comes, but we face it together." Outside, the forest exhaled a cold breath across the snow. The storm wasn't over. It had only begun circling its prey. And Logan knew the truth now. The men tonight were not the real danger. The real danger was still coming. The night did not rest after the fight. Even with the 3 intruders subdued, one unconscious, one bleeding but stable, and one gone into the forest like a frightened shadow, Logan felt the weight of danger thick in the air. It lingered like smoke in a closed room, unseen but suffocating. He paced through the cabin, checking Shadow every few minutes, confirming the dog's breathing stayed even, his pulse steady, his wounds unchanged. Shadow lay curled on the padded mat Logan set for him. The rise and fall of his chest reassured Logan, but the exhaustion in those dark eyes reminded him how close he'd come to losing him again. Logan turned off the lights, engaging blackout mode. He checked every window, every latch, every line of sight. He moved like a man preparing for siege, not survival. One quiet step at a time, methodical, controlled. The tracking beacon had been tiny, but its implications enormous. Whoever hidden it inside Shadow had access to resources beyond simple mercenaries. And the men who came tonight weren't amateurs. They were testing weaknesses, gathering intel, preparing for something bigger. Logan knew patterns. First wave soft, second wave hard. Someone had resurrected a threat that should have died years ago, and somehow Shadow was in the center of it. Hours passed. The storm eased. The cabin settled into uneasy quiet, but Logan didn't sleep. He sat against the wall, shotgun across his lap, hand resting on Shadow's paw. At 4:12 a.m., Shadow's ears twitched. Logan didn't hear anything yet, but Shadow did. 30 seconds later, Logan heard it too. Not footsteps, not crunching snow, but silence breaking. Controlled movement through the tree line. Someone approaching with skill. Logan rose silently, stepping around the unconscious mercenaries, tied near the pantry. He positioned himself near the window. No moonlight reflected off metal. No shouting. No careless movements. Whoever approached wasn't sneaking. They were approaching openly, confidently. Then, headlights. Dimmed. Controlled. 2 vehicles glided through the forest and stopped at the perimeter, engines shutting down immediately to avoid sound signature. Not mercenary behavior. Not civilian. Logan's breath stilled. He recognized this pattern. Military. High tier. And not hostile. The spacing was too disciplined. 3 figures emerged from the trees, spreading out with deliberate arcs, checking angles, positioning themselves not to corner, but to secure the area. Not an attack formation, a perimeter. Logan lowered the shotgun slightly, not in surrender, but in acknowledgement. Only one group moved like this. SEALs. Real ones, not hired guns. A soft crunch of snow. A figure appeared at the edge of the clearing. Commander Rourke. Logan recognized him instantly. The older man's presence filled the space before he even stepped onto the porch. Square jaw, dark beard trimmed close, frost on his shoulders. His eyes, pale steel, sharp but calm, locked onto Logan with something like recognition, or respect. Logan opened the door before the commander could knock. "You're late," Logan said, though his voice carried no accusation. Rourke gave a faint grunt. "You're alive. That's early enough." His gaze dropped to Shadow, then to the 2 captured contractors. "You've had company." 3, Logan corrected. "1 ran." "We'll find him," Rourke replied simply. Logan stepped aside. If you're here for Shadow, it's not happening. Rourke entered the cabin, boots silent despite his size. If we wanted to take him, Logan, we wouldn't have knocked. One of the operators followed, young, tall, blonde, with sharp focus in his blue eyes. He swept the cabin corners, cleared the back hallway, then nodded to Rourke. All clear, sir. Logan studied the younger man. He carried himself with discipline, but still had the tension of a soldier who hadn't yet tasted real loss. New blood. Rourke motioned him outside. When the cabin door closed and only the two of them remained, Rourke exhaled heavily. We're not your enemy. Not tonight. Logan folded his arms, muscles tense. Then tell me what the hell is going on. Why is Shadow alive? Who sent him? And who are these assholes trying to take him? Rourke walked toward Shadow and knelt, respectfully, not intrusively. Shadow's eyes followed him, alert but not hostile. Rourke reached slowly, letting Shadow sniff his hand. The dog accepted him. That said everything. He remembers training, Rourke murmured, even after all this. Logan's voice hardened. Don't avoid the question. Rourke rose again. Shadow was part of Operation Iron Mantle. Logan stiffened. He hadn't heard that name in years. Classified. Buried. Shadow had vanished during Iron Mantle. Reported dead. You were never told everything, Rourke continued. None of us were. Command hid the full scope. Shadow wasn't just a canine asset. He was trained for something deeper. Pattern recognition, biochemical detection, electronic anomaly tracing. The kind of work meant to expose illegal weapons programs. Logan's mind raced. Weapons programs? For who? Rourke's eyes darkened. A private paramilitary company called Helix Paragon. They embedded operatives in multiple global operations. Shadow uncovered one of their remote labs by accident. Logan felt the floor tilt beneath him. And that's why they wanted him dead. Yes. Rourke's voice was flat. They couldn't risk him returning to any command with what he learned. So they sabotaged the extraction op. The explosion that killed him? Not an accident. Logan's jaw clenched. His breath came slow but heavy, fury pulsing beneath the surface. They had blown up an entire extraction team to hide a secret. Shadow survived, Rourke continued, but barely. Someone within Helix found him and kept him hidden. They intended to finish the job. Logan swallowed. Then who saved him? Rourke studied him. A medic named Risa Hale, your former teammate in the canine unit rotations. Logan blinked. Risa Hale, quiet, sharp, red-haired, fiercely moral. She had disappeared a month after Iron Mantle. She found Shadow barely alive in a storage facility used by Helix, Rourke explained. She pulled him out, patched him up, and for months kept him off-grid. When she realized Helix was closing in, she sent him to the one person she trusted to keep him alive. Logan's chest tightened. Me. You, Rourke confirmed, because she knew you'd fight for him even when the system wouldn't. Logan's breath shook once. Anger, grief, gratitude, all tangled. Where is she? Dead, Rourke answered quietly. Helix made sure of it. Logan closed his eyes briefly. Shadow let out a soft, mournful sound. Rourke placed a sealed folder on the table. Logan Rhodes, here's the official reinstatement of Shadow's retirement status. Permanent custody transfer. He's yours now. No one can requisition him. Not the Navy, not private contractors. No one. Logan stared at the folder, stunned. Why now? Because you triggered a dormant emergency code, Rourke said. When you transfused your blood into Shadow, the biometrics matched an old handler registry. It lit up the system. Great, Logan muttered. So I basically told the whole world he's alive. Rourke shook his head. No, you told us. Helix received the ping because they were illegally intercepting command channels. That's how they tracked him. Logan felt sick. But we shut the channel down, Rourke said. Helix won't get another ping. Logan nodded slowly. What happens now? Now? Rourke stepped back, giving Shadow a final look. Now we clean the forest, and then we protect you both until Helix realizes they lost their chance. He headed for the door. We'll sweep again at 0500. Stay inside. And Logan. Logan looked at him. Rourke's voice deepened. You didn't just save a dog tonight. You saved classified intelligence, and maybe more lives than you know. The commander paused, then added quietly, Risa Hale was right about you. Then he left. The younger operator outside nodded toward Logan respectfully as they disappeared into the trees. Silence returned. Logan locked the door, placed his shotgun aside, and sat next to Shadow. He stroked the dog's fur slowly, absorbing the weight of everything he'd learned. Shadow leaned his head on Logan's leg with a soft sigh. Logan whispered, voice low but anchored with resolve, "I lost you once. Never again." Outside, dawn crept in pale and uncertain. But inside the cabin, amidst the shadows and fading adrenaline, Logan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. And the faintest flicker of hope. Dawn broke slowly over the Montana forest, pale rays slipping through the thinning clouds as if hesitating to disturb the lingering darkness. Logan stood at the window, watching the light seep across the snow-covered ground. The forest, silent for so long, now felt like it was breathing again. The threat was not gone, not entirely, but something had shifted. For the first time in days, Logan felt the tension in his shoulders loosen. Shadow lay resting near the stove, wrapped in blankets, his breathing strong and steady. The transfusion had held. The swelling in his abdomen had stabilized. His eyes, sharp, dark, intelligent, followed Logan calmly, as if sensing the weight slowly lifting from the air. Logan crouched down and scratched behind Shadow's ear. "You made it," he murmured. Shadow exhaled softly, leaning into the familiar touch. They had faced death many times in the field, but this had been different. This fight had struck at the heart of the one thing Logan hadn't been prepared to lose again. Outside, faint crunches of snow announced the return of Commander Rourke's team. Logan stepped out onto the porch, shotgun slung casually over his back, more out of habit than necessity. The rising sun caught the frost on his jacket, sending tiny sparks of light across the air. Rourke approached first, followed closely by the young blonde operator from the night before, and another SEAL, tall, rangy, with dark brown skin and a habit of scanning everything with quiet alertness. The man moved like someone who had spent half his life in shadows, and the other half escaping them. "Rhodes," Rourke greeted. "We secured the perimeter. The runner didn't get far." Logan nodded once. "Alive?" "For now," Rourke replied. "He's talking. Fear does that to people when they realize their employer won't save them." The younger operator added, "Sir, we found intel suggesting Helix Paragon was preparing a second team, heavily armed. They weren't far behind the first group." Logan's jaw tightened, though the news didn't surprise him. "How soon?" "They won't arrive," Rourke said firmly. "We intercepted their comms, scrambled their coordinates, and sent a false evacuation order. They're boarding their own private jet thinking they're abandoning a dead lead." "And if they realize they were tricked?" Logan asked. "They won't," Rourke said, "because by the time they understand what happened, we'll have every file, every asset, every link to Shadow's mission wiped or seized." Logan let the breath he'd been holding slip out slowly. For the first time since Shadow arrived in that crate, he didn't feel the urge to scan the tree line every 2 seconds. Rourke reached into his coat and handed Logan a sealed envelope. "Final confirmation. Shadow's ownership transfer has been entered into the Defense Archive. He's off the books, permanently retired. No one can requisition him." Logan turned the envelope over in his hands, the weight of it heavier than paper should allow. "Thank you." Rourke's gaze softened slightly, just slightly. "You earned it, and he earned it more." The tall, quiet SEAL stepped closer, studying Logan with thoughtful eyes. "Name's Harper," he said, voice low and steady. "I was part of Iron Mantle's cleanup team. We never knew Shadow survived." Harper's face was angular, sharp-featured, with a short beard that framed a strong jaw. His posture radiated discipline, but also something haunted, shadows of missions he hadn't fully walked away from. His eyes held a depth that only came from living through things without witnesses. Logan extended a hand. "Logan Rhodes." Harper shook it firmly. "Hell of a thing you did, keeping him alive by yourself." Logan shrugged slightly. "Did what I had to." He glanced toward the door, where Shadow had lifted his head, watching the men outside. "For family." Harper nodded, like he understood that value better than most. Rourke turned to his men. "Give us a minute." The operators stepped away to check the perimeter. The commander faced Logan again. "This isn't just about Shadow. You know that, right?" Logan crossed his arms. "Helix Paragon won't stop until they're shut down." "They're being handled," Rourke said. "The evidence Shadow gathered is enough to trigger a full federal investigation. Their labs, their weapon programs, their hidden contracts, everything goes under review." "And us?" Logan asked quietly. Rourke considered him. "You're clear. No charges, no inquiries, and you're not being pulled back in. The last thing I need is you in my chain of command. You don't follow orders well." Logan smirked. "Never did." "But," Rourke added, "since you saved a classified canine and smashed a retrieval team on your own, you are now, unofficially, under our watch, until Helix disappears completely." Logan nodded. "Understood." Rourke started to turn away, then stopped. "Risa Hale's last report mentioned your name," he said. "Said if anything happened to her, you'd know what to do." Logan's breath caught. A ghost of memory washed over him, Risa smiling after patching Shadow's injured paw during a training accident, saying, "He listens to you more than anyone else. That means something, Logan." He forced the thought down. "I won't waste what she did." "Good," Rourke said softly. "She believed in you." As the commander walked away, Logan remained on the porch, staring at the envelope in his hands. Ownership papers, liberation papers, proof that the world couldn't take Shadow from him again. He went inside. Shadow lifted his head, ears perking. Logan knelt beside him, opening the envelope. The document inside was clean, crisp, official, bearing the Navy crest and a clear statement. Service Dog Shadow, permanent retirement and ownership transfer handler, Logan Rhodes. Logan read it twice before Shadow nudged his hand gently, sensing the shift in emotion. A quiet warmth spread through Logan's chest. "Looks like you're stuck with me," he murmured. Shadow huffed softly and placed a paw over Logan's knee. The simplest gesture, but full of meaning. The cabin felt different after that, lighter, like something heavy had been removed from the very air. Rourke's team left after sweeping the forest twice more. Logan stood outside long after their vehicles disappeared into the trees, listening to the silence. It felt peaceful this time, not threatening. Later that morning, the sun finally broke fully through the clouds. Its golden rays cut across the snow, refracting into tiny crystals that danced in the wind. Logan brewed coffee, letting the familiar aroma fill the kitchen. He took 2 mugs to the porch, his own and an empty one he placed near Shadow out of habit from long-ago deployments. Shadow limped forward, settling beside Logan's chair. He rested his head on Logan's leg, eyes half closed in contentment. It had been so long since Logan had felt this, quiet joy, unburdened breath, a sense of surviving something impossible. A second chance, a returning piece of his soul. The past was still there, scars and all, but now it no longer chased him. It simply walked beside him. He took a slow sip of coffee, savoring the warmth. "No more running," Logan said quietly. "No more hiding." Shadow exhaled through his nose, a soft, peaceful sound. "We're home," Logan murmured. Shadow shifted closer, pressing his weight gently against Logan's leg, as if agreeing. For the first time in years, Logan let his guard drop. Just a little. Just enough to breathe like a man who had earned the right to stop fighting. The snowstorm that had ruled his life had finally passed, and in its place, dawn gently settled over the world, warm, bright, and full of promise. In a world full of storms, sometimes the greatest miracle is simply making it through the night. Shadow's survival, Logan's return to peace, none of it came from luck. It came from loyalty, courage, and a light that refused to go out, even when the world tried to bury it. Maybe you're facing your own storm right now. Maybe something you thought was lost forever is still waiting to find its way back to you. This story is a reminder that miracles don't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes they arrive quietly, like a friend who returns, or a second chance you never expected. So, if this story touched you, share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment. Tell us what part spoke to your heart, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next story of courage and grace. May God bless you, protect your home, and fill your life with the kind of light that carries you through every storm. Amen.